This video is going to go through the process of solving linear equations. And on this first slide there is a list of steps that you can take as you solve linear equations. And then of course at the very end it's always a good idea to go back and substitute the value that you've ended up with into your original equation to make sure that you get the correct answer. When we solve equations, there are three possible solution types that we can end up with. First is that we end up with no solution. And an example would be if I do all of the appropriate steps and I end up with something like 2 equals 6. And since that's not a true statement, I'm not going to have a value that I can plug in for x that would make my equation true. Thus, I have no solution to my equation. Another type of solution would be that I have an infinite number of solutions. In this case, I end up with a statement that looks like this at the end, and since I can plug in any value for x to make that true, and it's always going to be true, then I would have an infinite number of solutions that I could substitute in for x. And then lastly, the one that's the most common is only having one solution. Remember that my goal in solving an equation is to isolate my variable, and in this equation my variable is x. Some people prefer to always move the variable to the left and always move the constants to the right. Some people have a preference to always keep the coefficient of my variable positive. Really, again, it's just preference. So however you prefer to go about solving is fine as long as you're following the steps appropriately. So I'm going to start by subtracting 2x from both sides. And notice that when I subtracted on the left-hand side, I lined it up under the 5x because those are like terms. I cannot subtract 2x from 9 because they aren't like terms. So 5x minus 2x is 3x. And of course you can do this in fewer steps, but I'm going to go through each step. Next, I'm going to move my 9 to the other side so that my constants are together on the on the right hand side. So 3x, negative 36, and negative 9 is going to be negative 45. And then dividing by 3, I end up with x equals negative 15. Now remember that you can go back and you can plug in your answer just to ensure that you have come up with the correct solution. And I'm not requiring that you do this every time, but it's not a bad idea to at least just do it really quick in your calculator. So I've got negative 15 times 5, so that's negative 75 plus 9 equals negative 30 minus 36. So negative 75 plus 9 is going to be negative 66 equals negative 66. So what we got is correct. Another equation for us. In this case, even though I typically prefer to bring my variables to the left, if I did that, then I would have to move the negative 9x and then move the 4. So in situations like this, I typically just do the least amount of steps, which would be to take the 7x to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides. 4 equals negative 16x. Then divide both sides by negative 16. I end up with x equals 4 over negative 16. And when I simplify that by reducing, I get negative 1/4. In this case, I want to follow correct order of operations by distributing, so I've got 6x plus 2 equals 6x plus 14. And let's go ahead and solve. Now notice here that my x's all cancel out and I end up with a statement 2 equals 14. And that's not true. At least I hope we know it's not true. So in this case, there is no solution, which means that there is no value of x that I could plug in here that would make the left side of the equation equal to the right side of the equation. Again, we're distributing. I've got 12x plus 6 equals 12x plus 6. And if you stop at this point, you can see that the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. If you didn't catch it and you went ahead and did this, you would end up with the statement 6 equals 6, and that's true. So in this case, I would have an infinite number of solutions. If we go back to this step, since the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side, no matter what value I plug in for x, it's going to stay equivalent on both sides. We talked about literal equations, so in this case it's asking us to solve the literal equation for h. So we want to get rid of our fraction first of all. But remember, we're trying to get this by itself. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to eliminate the fraction. So I've got 2a equals b1 plus b2 times h. In this case, it may be helpful. You could either distribute the h, but I'm actually, even though it's asking us to solve for h, well, never mind. Let's go ahead and just do this. Let's divide both sides by b1 plus b2. b1 plus b2. And we'll just do it that way. So we've got h equals 2a over b1 plus, b2. In this case, we are looking to first write an equation and then actually solve it. So if you would pause the video and see if you can come up with the equation that's correct first of all, and then check to see if it's correct, and then maybe pause it again to see if you can come up with the correct answer. Alright, so we've got 2 less than 1/3 of a number. So let's write that 1/3 of a number minus 2. So 2 less than 1/3 of a number equals 3 more than 1/4 of the number. So 1/4 of the same number, so I'm using the same variable, plus 3. Again, I'm going to get my variables on the same side, so I'm going to subtract 1/4 x, subtract 1/4 x. Now in this case, I'm going to need a common denominator, so I'm going to come over here and work with these. So I've got 1/3 x minus 1/4 x. So my common denominator between 3 and 4 is going to be 12. So I'm going to multiply the left by 4 over 4. 4 times 3 will give me 12. And the one on the right by 3 over 3. So I'm going to end up with 4 over 12x minus 3 over 12x. When I combine those, I'm going to end up with positive 1 over 12x. So my answer down here is going to be 1 over 12x minus 2 equals 3. So this I worked out over here, and I got 1 over 12x. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. 1 over 12x gives me, is my left-hand side, and then 3 plus 2 is 5. Lastly, I'm going to solve by multiplying by the reciprocal of 1 over 12, which is 12. And 5 times 12 is going to give me 60. So again, you could check. 1/3 of 60 is 20. 20 minus 2 is 28. And then 1/4 of 60 is going to give me 15. Okay, sorry. 1/3 of 60 is 20. 20 minus 2 is not 28, it's 18. My bad. 18. And then, let's see, where is that? 1/4 of 60 is 15. 15 plus 3 is also 18. So, we got the answer correct. And hopefully you did too.